Hello, and welcome. We return. We return. So, it is solo tabletop RPG day. Well, the day in which we run the solo tabletop RPG. I'm resisting the urge to say Sunday, as, well, it's not Sunday for you, but it is Sunday for me, calendars and all that. Looks like I failed this time to resist the urge. Anyway, where to begin? My apologies for being ever so slightly late. Of course, I had business to attend to. I say slightly late, what, I'm like 7 minutes late? Or something like that? Anyway, yes, had to walk around the garden, and then got called away to deal with a space battle. I suppose that's something we haven't covered here. Space battles. We'll get into one of those eventually. Hopefully a grand fleet battle. Well, hopefully not our mercenary adventurer, Juliana Aldous, as well. I don't think she's prepared for a fleet battle, let alone a normal space battle. Anyway. Oh, one other thing before we begin, I suppose. Two things, actually. One, well, we have a new project on top of all the other projects. A new one, yay. We are working on, and it won't be done soon, but we're working on the first official public Galactic Requiem adventure module. As I always make everything in Galactic Requiem, adventure-wise, story-wise, and all that, from scratch for my players. I always make it all from scratch, handcrafted. But I've always loved adventure modules. Never used them, but I've always loved them. Just a good adventure module with all the detail, the character stat blocks, all that stuff. I've always enjoyed adventure modules, just like the concept, looking at them, everything about them. So I thought, I don't use them personally, but I love the concept and I love looking at them. So why don't I make some lore guides and adventure modules and release them? So that's what we're working on, releasing some of those, starting with a small scale adventure, a single quick adventure, but that's how I started. The scope sort of grew, and I added more and more ideas to the adventure path. And then I thought, so this Galactic Requiem adventure, I want it to be system neutral, able to be used in any system. But then I said, yeah, we'll keep it system neutral, but we'll also add a the light rules of Galactic Requiem, a light version of the rules I came up with, basically for quick character generation. But basically, I thought I'd throw in the entire light rule set. So if you get the book, you can just play it. I said get the book. It's going to be released for free. It's a free adventure path. Anyway, not a free single adventure. It's not a chain of adventures. It's a single adventure book, basically. Anyway, so yeah, it's going to be a free adventure book, and it's going to contain the light variant of the Galactic Requiem rules. So if you have a system you prefer, you can run it in that system, or just with the book itself, you can play the entire adventure path because there's rules provided. And basically, all you need is dice. It's going to come with maps. I mean, if you have a virtual tabletop, which if you don't, I recommend Map Tools. It's free. Yeah. It also has a built-in dice roller. I can't speak highly enough of Map Tools. I love it. I mean, just the sheer fact that I think I've been over this before, but the sheer fact that when working with Map Tools, not like the group or the company, just the program, using the program, I could make a 5-foot scale map of a planet, and the only limiting factor is the memory size of the computer itself. Like the fact that that's an option. That's why I love Map Tools. Anyway, but yeah, no, just a free adventure path with lore and everything you need to play the adventure built into the adventure path. Because a lot of adventure paths you get are for pre-existing things. So they'll like, you require this other book to play the adventure path. Or system neutral adventure paths are like, here's an adventure path. You need a system to run it. We're going to include the system in it. So yeah. Well, like I said, the light variant of the system. But basically the first the first public Galactic Requiem release. Not really a release of Galactic Requiem, and we do Galactic Requiem here all the time. Anyway, I'm rambling. We're here for World Building Wednesday, not my plans. Not World Building Wednesday. Holy shit. Solo Sunday, but it's not. So, you know. That's enough of this. Sorry, being in that space battle really. I mean, it's not like I was doing anything important. Standing on the bridge of the ship, ordering fleets to go here, to go there. The usual. Which we'll cover. But anyway, I suppose I just want to talk about it a bit more because I love talking about what I work on. I mean, it's why we have World Building Wednesday. I love talking about what I work on. Basically, the first adventure is going to be a small-scale adventure that it's some fun combat. It's going to show off some of the combat systems of Galactic Requiem. Shooting through walls, hopefully, I think I'm going to include. Bunch of skill checks. A bunch of options, different factions, and different paths to start it with. I'm a big proponent of sandbox RPGs. I love sandbox. Of course, you can't sandbox with an adventure path, but can't you? Can't you? And so that's a big thing of what I'm going to do with the adventure path and why it's going to take so long to build. Because I'm going to provide so many options. If your players wish to go through the door, they can try and stealth it, or do the lockpick, or kick down the door, or maybe you want to break through a wall, so here's the health of the walls. Basically, we're going to try and make it as open as possible in a adventure path, Give whoever's running the adventure path all the options. Because I just, that's how I run Galactic Requiem. All the options available, possible. Anyway, it's going to be a simple adventure. Just a combat thing, bit of story, bit of combat. Use of the big guns. I say the big guns, of course, if you know Galactic Requiem. The big guns are like 20mm cannons used by people in powered armor. But we're talking the big guns like a 50 cal. Good stuff like that. Which should be enough, given that the enemies are probably going to be unarmored or lightly armored. Anyway, it's going to be a whole thing. Working on it. Hopefully we'll get it out. In addition, my plans are to try and get the news back. 1, 2, for our solo Sunday, try and be more. Take better notes. That's one of the things I want to do for our solo tabletop RPG. Take better notes. And, well, with that, let's get to it. Quite an intro, 11 minutes of intro. That's not ideal, but So, we were currently in a gunfight. Oh, one other thing I wanted to say is, I plan on releasing a few adventure paths. Ideally. I say adventure paths, just like adventure modules more, so I want to release a few. And not all of them are going to be just low-level combat. I want to do some that are diplomacy, mystery. I want to show off the diplomacy rules. Of course, I want to show off the space battle rules. All that good stuff. All the different aspects available. So a bunch of different adventure modules. Some of them connected, some of them not connected. Then the lore books, which is going to be like, basically for the lore books, I want to make I want to release a few subsectors, basically. Just a bunch of different lore about a few subsectors, factions, organizations, all sorts of stuff like that. But that's my plan. That's the project I'm working on, along with every other project. So, hopefully we'll get that stuff out. And all that started, genuinely, just because I was like, I remember looking at adventure paths years back, adventure modules and all that, years back, and always just loving them. Just the concept. Never use them, always love them. And so I thought, I'd make some. So, yeah. Anyway. Let's see whether I can't find all location. This will take a moment because I don't remember what I called the map. It's not going to be these. What? Okay, it's time to just start clicking on maps, I'll be honest. Wasn't it off to the side of this map? No? Was it this map? Could have sworn I made it its own separate map. Could be wrong about that. Which is why we're checking. Nope, it was on this map. That's why I couldn't find it. It was pre-existing map. Okay. So, without further ado, let us just double check that everything is working. Just real fast. Very good. So, let's get down to business. We were pinned down, being suppressed by a machine gunner. I know we hit the machine gunner, Yes, -4 to the right arm, 17 out of 20 damage taken, -3 penalty to head-based tasks. I suppose there's something else. I forget whether I mentioned this before, but I better bring it up. Oh yeah, that guy crit failed and fell over. So we re-edited a few, I think I went over this before, maybe not, which is why we'll cover it again. We recently worked on some Galactic Requiem rules. I say we, I mean I did, of course. Edited the action dice costs and abilities and options and stuff like that. So basically, what that means in short is certain abilities cost less action dice. That's about it. Specifically, also wounds. Taking wounds can be a bit clearer how you can use action dice to ignore wounds. And it's also, the costs have been reduced ever so slightly. So you might notice that it might be a little bit different in that sense. Don't worry, it's just as lethal, maybe just like 1% less, well, 5% less lethal, let's be honest. Just in the sense that now, it's not even like this is a new rule. Some prices have been reduced. However, mainly, I remembered that the rules that I wrote exist and that I should use them for reducing wound penalties. It's also been clarified a little bit, edited ever so slightly. But basically, in short, now the difference is going to be, where is it? The difference is going to be, instead of it being 2 action dice to the way it used to be. If I don't click too low there. Here we are. Instead of 2 action dice to ignore a wound, and basically ignore a wound, sort of. I forget how it used to be, because it's not written in front of me, but now it's 1 action die to, I mean, it didn't used to be 2 to ignore, it would be 2 to reduce the wound. Now it's 1 to reduce the wound by a step. It is 3 to ignore a wound, if it, like, right when it happens. 3 to ignore, 1 to lessen by a step, and 2 to not massive damage instant die. But it's a little bit more generous in the amount of pricing for that kind of thing now. Secondly, the prices of dramatic editing have been reduced by 1 action die apiece. And now you can use favor on it. So you might see a bit more use of dramatic editing. Dramatic editing is just a minor ability that basically, depending on how many action dice you spend, you can get little bonuses. Like, an example is, at the cost of 3 action dice, you can find a slightly, not necessarily assured to be there, but something that can conceivably be in a place that would be useful to you. Like, for instance, you're fighting in a construction area. Of course, there's likely going to be weapons around. Is there a hammer on that table when you need a weapon? Is there a hammer on that table? You can spend 3 action die. There's a hammer on that table. Yes, grab that hammer, hit the enemy with it. You know, like, you still have to roll to hit and all that, but like, Basically, you can use some action die to have slight conveniences happen, usually. It used to be rather expensive, now it's one action die less for that. So you might see a bit more use of that. Still relatively expensive, but a bit less. I mean, the least one is 2 for a common item, like something very simple, something very small is 2 action die, something little bit, but still not too rare or important, 3, and then 4 is something that is a bit more. Anyway, point being, there's that. There's also, I remember that action checks exist, which is like a luck check. So there's that. Remember that. And just, just a few things that I'm going to try and keep in mind and a few edits, stuff like that. I realize there is, we need a new rule. I know we're supposed to be rolling the dice, but I just realized we need a rule because it just occurred to me. So, obviously, the way action dice work are the GM can award them to players whenever. And whenever the GM awards an action die to a player, the GM gets an action die. Different kind, it's a world action die. But basically, world action die have uses and can be given to NPCs or used on players. But basically, anytime the GM gives the player an action die, they get an action die. Turns out, a little slight overlook. The GM bot is not designed to award action dice. It's not capable. And so I realized just now, I probably need a way for the GM bot to award action dice, because awarding action dice is rather important. Not really. I mean, you can get by without awarding action dice. It's not like it's a essential part of the game system in which action dice are awarded. It's just a nice thing that the bot should be able to do. Which makes me want to check the rules for the bot to see if there's anything already built in similar to that. One moment. All the work on Galactic Requiem recently has got me in the working on rules kind of mindset. My apologies. Okay. So yeah, it doesn't look like it has the ability unless we put it into certain check options or modifiers. But how would we do it? So the GM awards action die when it's thematic generally. When it's thematically appropriate, or the character does something cool, is when the GM will award action dice. Determining when the GM bot uses action dice is also another thing that the bot can't do. It's easy to determine when an NPC uses action dice. It makes sense when they do. Because, well, an NPC will use action dice when they're making a skill check, when they're trying to do this, when they're engaged in combat, when they're taking a wound. When an NPC uses action dice, makes sense. When the GM bot uses action dice, it's a bit more difficult, because the GM uses their world action dice like it's a feel, you know? It's a feel. You use it when dramatically appropriate. When something cool happens, you award them. Or You can be nice to your players and lower a dice check's difficulty, or raise a dice check's difficulty, or so forth and so on. Of course, you don't have to use them as a GM. As a GM, you can set things how you want, but it's a way for the GM to follow the rules of the world to a degree and still affect the world to make the adventure thrilling without going overboard. Of course, you can just absolutely ignore world action dice and do what you want as the GM, but it's very much like, I'm going to make this check more difficult for the players and award them this in response, and so forth. And in this case, you'd award them action dice, and ideally, an additional reward because it's a slightly harder check or something. Like it lets you sort of balance your difficulty. You can make it a bit more difficult in places, but also makes it easier for the players because whenever you make it more difficult for them, they gain action dice and stuff like that. Anyway, the bot doesn't have a way of doing it, so that's something I need to look into. I suppose we could leave it up to the players. That is an option. Oh, a solo player could decide when it's dramatically, but that's not ideal. It shouldn't happen that way. I mean, you can do it that way, but there's problems with that. Because like I said, a lot of them are options that make the player's life more difficult. So there should be a way for that to be determined by the bot. Ooh. Oh, I had an idea. So, as you might know, there's chaos dice, which is rolled when asking questions. We could tie it into that to a degree. For instance, like, no matter what, when chaos is activated, when a roll is within chaos, action dice, world action dice are used. Because you can have a chaos result and nothing happens, technically speaking. One moment, taking a note. Noting this down. I suppose I could also make a chart. Let's note that. Okay. Of course, none of this will come into play this time because we don't have it prepared yet, but that's rules to work on. Anyway, one of the reasons we need better notes, I think it's our turn, but I don't remember because I forgot to take notes on that. So they're pinning Yulena all this. I'm 90% sure it's her turn. Pinned down by a heavy machine gun using suppressing fire, meaning if she pops out, she's going to basically take a hit if she chooses to not take penalty. Or she can fire with penalty, I suppose. They're not the best equipped, these enemies we're fighting. But there's a few of them. There's a total, let's do the math real fast, just for knowing. There's about 20 of them. 15 of them are likely in the building, as 5 of them are outside the building. 15 are likely in the building, engaging with the people who are paying us. So, that does mean it's 5 against 1. We are in heavy armor. They do have assault rifles, but that doesn't mean they can't hurt us. It just means it's likely to be far lessened. On average, I happen to know off the top of my head that on average they're going to be doing about 11 damage. My heavy armor is rated to stop that. All but 1 point, technically. But that's if they roll average and don't burst or something like that. So it's not like they can't hurt us. They indeed can chip away at us. They could get a lucky hit and do quite a bit of damage. Theoretically, they could do up to like 20 damage with a normal hit. If they burst, 25 or 24, which is not ideal. That'd be 14 damage past my armor, you know? Anyway. Point is, the armor's rated to reduce damage from a single shot from an assault rifle, a heavy assault rifle. It's not rated for taking multiple hits. It shouldn't. I mean, it can, but you're not supposed to. So, don't want to get hit. A lot of enemies. None of them are dead. Let's check out gear real fast. So yeah, the space battle went well. I think I've been over this before, but the Empire doesn't generally lose in space battles. I mean, we lost a few ships, but I mean, on an overall sense. Then again, we were fighting, well, Imperial forces. Look, if you fight Imperial forces and you are Imperial forces, technically the Empire doesn't lose the space battle. Yeah. The problem we face is we don't have a way to fight them, ideally. We used 1 energy from casting. I think we tried to hack. And we shot some. You know, those are options, honestly. We can try and fry a few brains. That wouldn't give for grenades or something like that. Because, well, all the enemies have cover, which isn't ideal. I mean, that's honestly a grenade launcher would be better. I mean, it's a lot of range to be throwing a grenade, but Is this worth $5,000? I suppose that's the real question. I mean, we're a bit deep in now, given the fact that we've shot one of them. I kind of want to kill them on, well, I mean, I feel a little obligated to now, you know? But that's just me. What does Juliana Aldis feel? That's a much more difficult question. Well, I know she doesn't like these people. It was determined that they work for her government. Well, loosely. They work for the people who are working for her government and are using gear from her government. So she really, well, secondhand gear from them. So she really doesn't like them. They are against, so I mean, she does. It's not like it's personal, but she does sort of feel like it is a partial strike against her government if she does this, in a sense. So she'll probably give it a bit more of a shot. Unless things go south, I mean, the greater goal is to actually, damage her government. This won't help with that in the greater goal sense. So it's not like she'll risk her life for this, but she'll give it a shot. Now is when thinking outside the box comes into play, by the way. They are suppressing this location. If we step out, we get shot. If we try and fire back, we take penalty. If we try and fire back without penalty, we get shot. So, we could fall back this direction. There's no easy way. We could try and go through the building, but that would take time. Like, go into the building, go up a few stories. We don't have a lot of options of up a few stories, do we? We're underground. I mean, it's a couple stories tall, I would assume. So, yeah, we'd probably get to like a second or third floor at maximum. Could try and flank through the building, could try and flank around the building. Both of those would take quite a bit of time. Could try, and if it's a couple stories tall, we could try and climb. That wouldn't be easy. We don't have any sort of special abilities with climbing or anything like that. Let's look at our magic real fast. And our hacking. And let's muse. That's just an alarm. It tells us when things are happening. That'll damage programs. It's only good against programs. Anti-personnel is good against hurting people ever so slightly. Protection's just to protect us. Control can move things. That's a lot of where our utility here is going to be. Don't get me wrong, there are better programs that have all sorts of abilities. Like, there are programs that'll jam a target's vision. There are programs that do all sorts of neat stuff like that. We don't have any, because I haven't bought any. But there are all sorts of neat programs that have, like, effects like that. Stuff that's cool. Sort of like magic, but with programs. Affect their vision, affect their movement, affect their cybernetics, control their brains. All sorts of neat stuff. I mean, we don't need programs to do them. It's just we do them at the lowest tier, and it would be hard to get them to work. We'd have to roll higher, we wouldn't get bonuses, and we could only do them at the lowest tier. So it's not really an option unless you're heavily spec'd into hacking, you know? Could also design programs with programming skill. Anyway, so I'm not seeing, I mean, like, we could probably think outside the box. We could probably affect a few displays if there are holographic displays. Not necessarily the best in the middle of a gunfight, unless there's, like, situations in which you can think outside the box. Like, you know, if you're fighting in front of a display, you could hack the display, shield your eyes, make it all of a sudden bright, blinding your enemy without having a blinding vision impairment ability for hacking, you know? Like, there are ways to do it. In this situation, that's not an option, given that there's no big, bright displays around or something like that. So I'm not I mean, we could try and control the vehicles, but we've determined that they're probably not on the net. We know that the troopers are on the net, so we could probably hack them. But like I said, it'd be the lowest tier if we want to do anything special. We don't have, so no bonus, lowest tier, and we basically stand no chance at it. We're not really spec'd into this. Meaning we're likely going to have to go with casting if we want to do something more than just shooting, and shooting's not going to work out well, given our, I believe, -4 to hit, unless we want to take a round. We could surge, which that increases our movement and stuff, not really what we're looking for. Arcane Strike, we could boost our next attack. Can be any attack, by the way. That's the great thing about Arcane Strike. It will boost any attack. It is super useful in a sense that you can use it to basically quick enchant bullets. You can use it to quick enchant, what were they? Bullets, melee weapons, basically other magic even. The downside with Arcane Strike is, well, it's instant. That's the bright side. The downside is it costs. If you were to just use enchantment on bullets, it will last longer, A, and B, well, it'll last longer and it's far cheaper. Super cheaper. While if we were to use Arcane Strike, it's instant. You can do it whenever, on anything, without having to pre-prepare, but it costs a lot. It costs like DC 15, so 3 mana to do it at the lowest tier. Which is, you know, that's a lot when you consider that. That's 1d6 damage and 1 to hit for 15. By the way, for comparison, a standard 1d6 can be done at like DC 5, DC 10. Does 1d6 to 2d6 for DC 5, DC 10. For basically 1 or 2 mana, you can do 1d6 to 2d6, as opposed to 15 for 1 to hit and 1d6. So it's less efficient, but you can just use it without having to prepare instantly. So it's the trade-off. Same with Arcane Shield. It's technically cheaper, if I recall, and easier to roll to get basically a little shield up. I think. I'd have to double check the rules on that. So other than that, that's not all of our options, by the way. That's the like special moves. We also have a bunch of free abilities. I say free. You have to learn them technically, but basically we know them being a former military caster. But in essence, the way casting works is we combine a method, an effect, and optionally a category. Mostly methods and effects. So we could target DC 10 and then basically any effect. And it's very freeform in how it works for casting. Like, we decide what we're attempting. There's a long list of costs and DCs and all that, basically for what it's going to be to do any individual thing you're trying to do. But basically, it's very freeform in how you go about it. Basically, there's no, in essence, if you're used to like Dungeons and Dragons, I cast Fireball. No, 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 no. If you wanted to do something like that, you would go blast. Now, Fireball's a spell in like Dungeons and Dragons, so you'd go blast fire. That's how you do a fireball. But you're not limited. You can do blast heat, blast force, blast arcane, blast ion, blast any of them. Basically, you're not limited to your spell type. Casters in Galactic Requiem are very free in their manipulation of arcane energies, usually. You can choose, the fun thing is, if you're a caster, you can choose to specialize. So you could be a fire-limited caster, meaning you only do fire. You only do fire. And if you do that, you gain more energy points. You have reduced cost for reducing energy point cost, and you cast as if you were a higher level when you cast. Basically, you gain all sorts of neat benefits for specialization. But also, you're specialized, so the downside is, well, I can't do water, force, arcane, any of that. I do fire. But the more you specialize, the more benefits you get. So like, if you only do fire, you're going to be casting like you're a much higher level. You're going to be able to cast for longer because you have more energy. And even when you run out of energy, you'll be able to cast more because you can reduce energy cost of casting for your spells for a lot easier and stuff like that. We're not specialized though. So the real question, oh, that's why casters are so powerful, by the way. The real question is, how creative are we? Because casting, not sure if you know this, we've probably been over this before, super powerful, very freeform, and also there's a reason before I mentioned that Yulana Aldis gets paid so much more than somebody with her training. And that's because she's a caster. Casting is very powerful. So let's think of a way out of this situation. Oh yeah, I remember the last time we tried to cast, we exploded ourselves. Yeah. Yeah. That's the downside of casting. Also, it's easily counted. Because energy fields stop casting, and will make it really hard to do so. Also only a tier 2 caster, which is not good. Anyway, we can still think outside the box, and it is still super powerful. So, let's think outside the box. I'm pretty sure we have basically every special type. Maybe not all of them. I know we have a lot of them. Most of them. Possibly even all of them. So, you could heat something up. You could light something on fire. We could light the machine gunner on fire. That's an option. He'd probably have a real hard time maintaining basically a suppression effect when he's on fire. But we can probably think even more outside the box. We can make a shield wall. We can make a wall of earth. We could make a wall of death. I'm not sure why we'd make a wall of death, but we could. Wall plus death. We could target darkness. Okay, we definitely don't have all the abilities. Because I'm pretty sure we don't have curse. Unfortunate. We could try and blind everybody over there. If they don't have flash suppression. They probably have flash suppression though. We could try to just cause pain to the machine gunner. I think fire is going to be a bit more useful than pain, because fire happens to include pain. It's not like we're trying to do something stealthy with it or anything like that. We could just make a field of darkness, but bullets will be able to pass through it, technically speaking. We could give ourselves a shield, probably. Empower our weapon. Honestly, there's a lot of cool things we could probably do. We could start levitating more than likely, and I don't know, try and get an advantage that way. The options are basically limitless with casting, which is what it's so useful about it. But you have to think outside the box for that. Sometimes just lighting the machine gun on fire is the more ideal option, isn't it? And yeah, we are really missing a bunch of options. We're missing like chemical, like we could use toxic and like poison people and stuff like that. We don't have any of that stuff though. As you can see under our effects here, we don't have any fancy magical abilities that we have effects-wise like that. So basically, we could make a shield of earth and then try and push through, I suppose. Let's just light the guy on fire. So we'll make a roll. Basically anything. How are we targeting him? So bolt will do the most damage for the easiest difficulty. Target does as much damage as bolt, but is a higher difficulty for a reason. Target, you don't have to roll to hit. Bolt, you have to technically hit your target. Target, you don't need to hit your target. You just absolutely hit them basically no matter what. It's like you focus your mind on them and they burst into flames. You know, bolt is you fire a bolt of fire at them. That's why target is so much more difficult than bolt. Targeting is the same as target. It automatically hits, but instead of a base dice being 1d6, its base dice, I believe, is a d4. So it's weaker, but it will hit the target. I don't feel confident in rolling. Well, we have a plus 12. It's not bad. That means we're basically going to... With a plus 12, I'm confident we can do a targeted attack. A target attack. But I'm not sure how much damage we can do. Targeting would do less. Target. We'll just use target. So DC 10 minus 5 to the difficulty. So the DC is going to be 5 to target, and then anything above 5 is going to be damaged. A D6 of damage. So 1d20 plus 12. Okay. Was on dice roller. As long as we don't roll a 1. Watch us immediately roll a 1. 12. So 12 and 12 is 24. 24 minus 5 is 19. So that's going to be 3 dice. Up to 3 dice. If we got 1 higher, it would be up to 4 dice. But we have 3, so it's up to 3 dice. Then we're targeting the machine gunner with fire. That's going to be 3d6. Let's actually double check that in the rules real fast. I sometimes forget exactly how casting works. So after the 5, we got a 19. So yeah, 3, technically we could boost it by spending additional EP for 4, because that's technically allowed. Even with 19, if we got 20, we could do 5, but we can technically do 4 with 19. Yeah, let's do 4. Okay, so that's going to be 4d6, and then what are the rules for fire? Because there are special rules for every single type of casting magic, basically. Effect, that is. Plus 1 point of damage per die. Plus 1 damage per die. So 4d6 plus 4. So it's almost like we're hitting them with a 50 cal. Actually, it is like we're hitting them with a 50 cal on auto. Now you see the power of casting. We could have probably done more damage, honestly, had we done a bolt and hit with it or something like that. Anyway. 21. Well, that was useless. Should have just gone with 1d6, I'll be honest. Because this target does not survive having taken 17 out of 20 damage and then bursting into flames for, what was it? 21 additional damage. He is fried. He is dead. There is just fire in that vehicle. He's gone. He would in fact have to save or die if he didn't already die. Anyway, since we already rolled, we're stuck. Technically, since we have the ability, we could lower the amount of cost, like to whatever we wish we wanted to roll, as long as it's lower than our total. But you have to do that before you roll damage. So, obviously we can't now. We've wasted a lot of mana. 4 to be exact. Um, Behold the power of a caster. Um, we could even just have gone Arcane Strike and basically added another d6. Like, why? Do you want to be risky? Let's be risky. This is a stupid idea. This is a genuinely stupid idea. Let's lower the cost of that spell by 1. We have to declare that beforehand. Not before the spell, but before we have to determine the amount we want to try and lower it by. So we're going to try and lower the cost by 1, meaning we're going to have to make an arcane check, which is going to be DC 12. We have to beat 20. So as long as we roll 8 or more, I'm a little bit worried, honestly. 10 plus 12 is over 20. So that's a success. I'm good. I'm glad we didn't try and lower it by 2, or that would have been a failure. That's why you have to declare beforehand, by the way. Okay, so that's going to be 3 mana. Which drops us to 3 instead of 2. An improvement. Also could have probably just not used all of the dice forever on killing him. Had we rolled a 2 on 1d6, we would have killed him. You know? Like, we didn't have to. But that'll show him. Do we have mana regen? No, I don't think we're cool enough for that. But what we should do is start using our level 0 spells, basically. Level 0, get 6 out of 6, and they basically always only do D4, I believe. I'd have to double check the way it works, but basically they always do the minimum possible. Like, they might not even do D4. Like I said, I'd have to double check. But basically, they do minimum, like just absolutely nothing, but they technically regenerate infinitely. It takes you 1 full round of just going, like, for 6 seconds, you do nothing. Gain 1 level 0 energy point back. You can only spend 1 level 0 at a time, by the way. You can't, like, stack them. You use 1 level 0. As far as I know. And basically infinite casting of the lightest degree. I mean, you can still kill with it. It's like having a it's like having a knife, you know? We have a half action, don't we? Yes, we do. What do we want to do with a half action? Well, we're no longer being suppressed. We could try and shoot. Pretty sure we take a penalty, though. Second attack and all. We try and cast again, but we take a penalty. Second attack and all. I think we are going to... we'll shoot at this guy, even if we're taking a -5. Sure. He has cover. Not ideal. But we're not taking the penalty for being suppressed. So that's good for us. So we're going to do a burst to hit. 20 rounds. 7. So 2 plus what? Two plus 10 is 12, plus the burst. That I need to check on real fast. Here it is. 6 plus 6. 18. Now, normally, that wouldn't be enough. Genuinely. Because he has armor. It would be enough if he didn't have armor. Let me double check that, just so I'm absolutely certain about the rules. For that, I need to check the NPC book. So yeah, his AC should be like 20. Sorry, no, it would be 19. 15 plus 4. 19. So I normally wouldn't be able to hurt him with an 18. But we're using armor-piercing rounds. Which drops it to 15, meaning that's a 3. We hit the cover. We hit the cover. I forgot about the cover. By 1 point. We're genuinely off by 1 point. So you know what that means? Action die. I'm not going to waste a burst, you know? Not a burst of armor-piercing rounds, that is. D4. 1. That's literally all we needed. Okay. So, how much damage is that going to be? 3 damage. 2d10 plus 3. For a total of 11, we rolled exceptionally low. His armor doesn't matter, though. So he takes 11 points of damage, and that will proc a wound. Is that... I believe it will. Let's quickly double check. It is not over his con, which is 14, so it's not a critical wound. It's not like he's going to take a super thing, but it is half his con, and he's going to take a -2 wound. Unless he spends an action dice. Which he has 2. Well, let's roll an additional thing real fast. It's important, I suppose. That is, where is he taking his wound? Obviously, that's relatively important to determine whether he does the thing or not. It's going to be, I have to open a separate book, so I'm going to roll a physical die just so it's a lot quicker. 14. 14 says it is a hit in the torso. So now we roll a d10. And if this is a 10, we roll on the next chart. If it's not, nothing special. It's a 9, close to a 10, nothing special. So he's going to be taking a -2 on all torso-based activities, which I don't think he wants to take a -2 on. So he is going to spend one action die to take a wound. He's not spending an action die to take a wound, he's spending an action die to take less of a wound. Meaning he is only going to take a minor wound. I'm just noting on his sheet. Minor wound, -1 torso. And he's at -1 action die. Good. We need to subtract this ammo from our file. 20 rounds of armor piercing, a bit of a waste. But we must remember, we do gain 1,600 credits a week. Which means we can buy a number of ammo a week due to our investments. So it's not like it's a total waste. Okay. Oh, we don't have any special abilities. Damn. If we had special abilities, he might have taken something more. As it stands, with no special targeted shot ability, and as we didn't technically make a cold shot, it is just a normal -2 wound to the torso. But that does mean that the target has a penalty to athletics, acrobatics, strength, and some dex-based skill checks, which unfortunately does not count shooting. Not in this case. So, I believe that brings it back to their turn, unless we wish to heroic surge or something. So, one of them bursts into flames, screams, and then goes limp as the suppressing machine gun stops firing. The other one takes a burst of fire as the minute the machine gun stops, Julian Aldous pops out, lets out a burst, barely hitting the target there. Suppose we should also do one thing I forgot, which is subtract that action die. Assuming I find it. There it is. So, where was I? Yes. One bursts into flames, screams, and goes limp. The heavy machine gun stops firing. Julian Aldous pops out, lets out a 20-round burst, hitting the other directly in the torso. He well, he's in pain, but it's not too big of a problem for him, as he is alive at a little bit lower than half health. They will... So of course we can, like, check the NPC charts and all that, but, like, as long as we act as they should, in their best interest, it's usually fine. I mean, the chart is specifically interpretation and all that anyway. But I suppose we'll ask the bot a quick question. This guy, is he, because I have a thought about an option he has. He could try and climb on top and get to the machine gun. It's not much more powerful than his assault rifle, but it basically saves him actions because of the lack of reloading. I think he'll try that, honestly. Well, we'll ask the bot whether he'll try that, because it's not a bad idea. But instead of using the NPC chart, we'll just make it a yes-no, and we'll roll with chaos. So, will that trooper hop on the vehicle and attempt to man the machine gun? Chaos? No chaos. Now, yes or no? 2 and 1. No. That's a 3. That's actually an exceptional no. In fact, he sees his buddy burst into flames up there, and he does not want anything to do with that. In fact, it's an exceptional no. Let me double check, make absolutely sure that is indeed an exceptional no. I don't want to cheat or anything. Yep, 3. That is exceptional no. In fact, he might even take a, he's going to make a morale check because of it. 17, he succeeds. So he's fine. He doesn't lose his lunch, he doesn't panic, but he is, he does not want anything to do with that machine gun. He feels like if he gets up there, well, let's make another check for him. This one's a knowledge check. 10. Plus, yeah, no, he doesn't know currently that it is magic that has done it. He doesn't know that it's casting. So he basically just saw the guy burst into flames, thinks his position has more cover, basically, and does not want to climb up there. Okay. So, instead of doing that, maybe he still gets his turn. This person will stand up because they can't do anything on the ground. We'll start with that person just because it's easier. Stand up because being prone's not going to help him there. And he'll let out a burst with a -4. Not ideal. He's going to burst to hit, because that would be the most ideal way to go about it. 3. 8. 15. So he misses, and he probably has to, at this point, reload his gun. He can't do that this turn, so let's just put a quick mark on him. I suppose we'll just put that mark on him, indicating that he is reloading. Which will take a half action for his next turn. Another burst to hit at -4. Wait, he has a half. No, because he stood up. That's why. Okay, this guy will also. +6. Question. Do they have any grenades? Likely, if they do, it's going to be flashbangs, but the question is, does this guy have access to any with him right now? I'm not going to roll for chaos, we're just going to roll yes or no. 3, 4, 7. No. He does not have a flashbang with him. It would be in the vehicle. He would have to retrieve it. So he will just fire a burst to hit. 14. That stands a better chance. 14 plus 7 plus 5 minus 4 is 22. 22 against Juliana Aldis. In heavy armor, mind you. In cover. So Juliana Aldis ducks behind the building as a few rounds hit the side of it. As they basically just spark slightly off of her shoulder plate and the side of the building. Okay. He has a half action. I believe he fired a burst last turn. I believe. So he's going to spend his second half action reloading. This guy who doesn't want to has a very bad line of sight on Juliana Aldis. Hmm. He will actually take off running, not to retreat. He's going to try and flank. I know that we didn't want to, but that's because I was afraid it would take time. It will take time, but I mean, he might as well genuinely give it a shot. It might actually change the tide. So he'll run. The reason I didn't want to, it's not because it's not necessarily a good idea. They would lose cover against us if we showed up here, but there's only one of us. So, like if we went away, they had plenty of options, basically. So for them, that's not a problem. So yeah, he'll try and flank, I suppose. It'll take him a few turns, but that might make a difference. This guy's hit, meaning he's not going to go running. He could, but he probably doesn't want to try that with a wound to his torso. He will. Well, he sees his buddy run. Tactically speaking, the smart thing to do is probably to try and suppress. Like, he doesn't know it's magic either, more than likely, so he'll probably just actually spend his turn suppressing. So the suppression stops from there. Fire comes out, burns him. He takes some rounds. He, takes 2 steps back, takes a bit of a gasp, steps forward, braces his gun against the thing. Not with the brace action, but, and just starts spraying, trying to keep Juliana Aldis from popping out, And we'll add the suppressed status to us. I don't really have a suppressed status, so we'll add just shaken, basically. We're taking fire. Okay. And once again, it's a bit early. It's a bit early. But I think we're going to call it there for this time. We'll try and go for longer next time and in the future. Well, there's a few things I need to do. A, that space battle is still going on. They likely need my assistance, my guidance. Two, um, after that, I kind of want to work on Galactic Requiem work. I gotta try and work on the Tuesday news video, and I need to work on the adventure module. I need to help with the space battle. I need to make sure the Galactic Requiem rules are working. I need to work on the rules. I need to format documents. There's a lot of things I need to do. But next time we'll try and go for a lot longer. We also have theoretically, there's a special thing coming up. Theoretically, there should be I don't want to talk too much about it yet because I'm not sure when it'll happen or if it will be done, but I believe it will. And so there is a slight special thing coming up. So yeah. It's not like it's a secret or anything. I always personally, when people are like, oh, there's a thing and I can't talk about it, I'm like, yeah, that's dumb. That's exceptionally dumb. But so I have to clarify. The reason I'm doing that, given that it's something I hate doing and seeing people do, is genuinely because I'm not sure the project will, I'm relatively certain the project is being done. But I'm not entirely sure. There's work and all that, and things that need to be done to get it to work. So I don't want to, be like, here's the thing we're doing, and then not have it happen. I feel bad enough about missing doing the news, So, I don't want to, and also our lore videos that I'm supposed to be doing. Look, I already feel bad enough about being like, yeah, we're going to do these lore videos, then missing a bunch, and being like, we're going to do these news videos, then missing a bunch. I already feel bad enough about that, then mentioning something that's planned that if we don't do, I'm just going to feel super terrible about after saying, oh yeah, here's this big thing we're working on, then it doesn't happen, then I'll be like, So hopefully it'll be done, and then I'll talk about it when it's done. Just don't want to, say there's something I'm going to do and then not get it done. So yeah. And ideally, at some point in the future, our adventure module will be done, which is another thing I've stated that I'm going to do, that I need to put a bunch of work into to get done. But yes, I hope you all had a good time. Like I said, I'm sorry for everything that's happened. And we'll try and go for longer next time. We'll try and get all these projects out. And I look forward to sharing the first adventure module for Galactic Requiem. Ideally, hopefully. I mean, that's another thing I'm pretty sure I'm going to do it. Like everything else. I really gotta just not bring up the projects, because then I feel bad if they don't happen, So, basically, yeah, that's what we're doing today. I hope you all enjoyed. Next time we'll go for longer, make more progress and all that. Next time is going to be World Building Wednesday. We might have Armor Saturday again. And we might play some games at some other point, maybe. And but for sure, World Building Wednesday next time, and then solo RPG Day, which definitely isn't on Sunday. If you know our calendar, you know it is Sunday. But for you Elysians, it's like Friday. But it doesn't rhyme, does it? Solo Tabletop RPG Friday doesn't rhyme. It just so happens to be that Sunday is genuinely the day that Friday falls on, because the Galactic Standard calendar is 2 days ahead. It's always 2 days ahead. So World Building Wednesday is actually on Friday in the Galactic Standard Time. But that also doesn't rhyme, now does it? So we sort of cheat and use both. Enough rambling. I hope you all enjoyed. As always, I've been your host, Casimir Basilius, and I hope that you, yes, you, have a wonderful day. Genuinely.